Could we have even called this phase one a deal?
Well, there was a lot of fanfare coming out of the press conference last week, a lot of celebration, and then you had Chinese state media immediately temper the excitement by saying, you know, number one, this is not a plan, and number two, this is not really even an agreement. What we have here is just a foundation to work towards some kind of a plan to be signed on November 16 or 17. So really those comments from China signaled that they are perhaps not on the same page as the U.S. in terms of how much has been decided, and we're still in for a relatively long process while they negotiate out the last few weeks of this agreement.
Alan, do you feel like the process could take longer based on what we've seen so far? I mean, if the administration is going to say that there were substantial things accomplished in this deal and what they tout are ag purchases instead of emphasizing the supposed developments in IP protection, that doesn't add up to me.
I feel like that unless there is some truly dramatic exogenous development, e.g. Hong Kong blowing up, some Taiwan crisis, or a really big downturn in this U.S. economy, I think that it's quite possible that this formal trade talks track of U.S. China policy could go on quite a while longer. We might see announcements of more preliminary deals, mini deals, phase 1.5, whatever President Trump chooses to call it. But I think what's just as important, and probably more important, is that track 2 of Trump's China policy is very much alive so far, and that is what I would call the U.S.-China decoupling track. The administration continues to take further steps to make sure that the United States keeps on disentangling itself from China's economy. And I think that that's been President Trump's highest priority all along, even though he doesn't talk about it very much.
What is the implication? I mean, if you, Alan, connect the dots and push this out further, I mean, does that mean that in the world, in the long run, there will be a China bloc and a U.S. bloc, so to speak? I
fully expect that. And as I see it, that's going to happen. It's going to include quite a few more countries other than the United States, because even though many of them are very conflicted when it comes to dealing economically with China, it was striking that even London's Financial Times, which is no fan of this trade war, to be sure, and is no fan of the whole decoupling idea, to be sure, even the Financial Times editorial board last week called for more American support to build up European alternatives to Chinese telecom companies. I was astonished by that, and everybody else should be too.
No, it's a good point. So, Kelsey, you know, the following this day to day starts to get a little deadening because, frankly, it's not clear we're leading to some kind of big deal or major breakthrough. So how should markets and investors and corporate America be thinking through this? You know, a long-term decoupling, maybe short-term, you know, fewer tariffs this year than anticipated.
That sounds about right. This will continue to go on for a long time. And what we're looking at now is not only that tariffs are driving decoupling, but ideology is driving decoupling. So looking forward, we do have these issues. Hong Kong, Xinjiang, Taiwan, Iran, all of these factors are going to weigh on the U.S.-China relationship, and that's not going anywhere soon. In fact, that is actually ramping up. So even if you do see some instances of tariff or sanctions relief for the rest of the year, you are going to continue to have a wedge between the U.S. and China that really plays out globally, or at least in the Western world.
Kelsey, Alan had made the point that he didn't think a deal would happen any sooner, be long and drawn out, unless things happen that effectively bring China to its knees or bring the U.S. to its knees. Would you agree?
It's going to be very difficult for either side to come to an agreement. That is definitely true. And we could have some external factor that makes that happen, but you know, it's really more likely that this continues to drag on for quite a while. I mean, China has to be comfortable making some openings in sectors that it might not otherwise want to. And the U.S. is going to eventually have to address the issue with Huawei. So these are two very, very big issues that have been now kicked down the road. And that's what we're going to be fighting with, you know, for the next year at least.